Then a warm welcome to our October meetup, guys. Warm welcome to our first session of the month. So today we have a couple of guests, but before talking to our new guys, René, how are you doing?
Super good. Very, very excited for this meetup today with the two fabulous guests and also joining tomorrow the Omnissa event in Amsterdam. Maybe I see some of the people here in the chat tomorrow. Would be fun.
Definitely. So for those of you who are listening, René was thinking about buying a 3D printer. Where is your project now at the moment? Did you buy it already or?
No, just observing at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, there is a Black Friday happening at the moment on Bamboo Lab. But yeah, let's jump into the topic of today. So we have two great speakers. So we will do the start with Mats, who will talk about the MSP program, and then we will hand over to Fredrik Bratstig, and we will talk about the latest news around the Microsoft and AVD updates. We had to push the date a couple of times around, but now that's the final date. And if you're watching the recording, we have an upcoming meetup happening on the November the 5th, together with Douglas de Camp and Jeremy Green, both extremely highly technical people from IGEL, not to say the best ones you can get. And they will talk about the zero-touch deployment with IGEL OS 12. They will even add a little bit of additional information to what they already did on the Miami event. So even if you are joined the Miami event on site, you will get the latest news around this procedure and how to perform the import as best as possible. So we are there, guys. I will stop sharing. Mats, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Let's see if we can get this up and running. So you should see my screen.
We do.
Oh, perfect. Good. So delighted to be here with the IGEL community and share a bit of my thoughts around the newly launched Managed Service Provider Program and how this can help partners and customers get the most out of their money and the most out of their time and resources. It's basically what it's about. And as it says here on my opening slide, it is really an opportunity both for customers and for IGEL partners. So, and there we go. Operate the slide deck. There we go. So the managed services in general is really on a growth path, as I'm sure you see in all news from many sources. This is just one example of, say, cloud-based global services forecast growth from 2023 to 2028 with an average or compound annual growth rate of 12%. So it's a business in general, say, managed services that are in demand. And you can say, why is it that it's in demand? So there's multiple reasons, and I'll go through some of them, both seen from the customer point of view and also from the reseller point of view. And it is really fundamentally, it's a model that's beneficial to both sides of the delivery, both the customer and the reseller. And it highly helps improving the cash flow for both parties, which in these times are very important, and also to overcome some or many of the resource constraints that we see in the IT industry in general. And if you look at it from the customer side, I mean, why is it that many customers demand? And this is, of course, not to say an exhausted list. It's just examples of elements that are driving customers to say, okay, let's go for a managed service rather than build and manage and deliver IT solutions internally with all our own people, our own licensing, our own hardware, and our own resources. One element is flexibility, where I would say in times that we have, say now, where the future is pretty uncertain, both geopolitical, financial, and for many businesses, the future is not, say, it's not a straight path. So businesses require flexibility. They need to be able to scale their environment, scale their resources up and down. So many are using short-term contracts and third-party consultants, etc. And this is also tied flexibility to the fact that the cost of money is high. So it's important for customers to keep money in the bank to make sure that they have a sound and good cash flow themselves to be able to say have the money to react to situations where you need to do something, and obviously say fund the growth and evolution of your business. The second element in driving customers to managed services is the lack of resources. Skilled IT professionals are really just a scarce resource. And also, I mean, at the same time, the cost of those highly skilled people, it's going up all the time. So it can be difficult, I mean, especially for a small or mid-size organization to have both the Microsoft, the VMware, the IGEL, the Checkpoint, whatever resource or technology, they have those resources in-house to make sure that you deliver and build the service for your employees at the right level, say, quality-wise. And that also ties to the security element of things, where ransomware is just an increasing risk for everybody. And it's a struggle, both resource, time, and money-wise, to keep up with the architectures and evolving things, and just keep up with the regular patching of your environments. And by moving to a managed service, you have the ability, at least, of course, if you want flexibility, ask for somebody that delivers it, to get, say, improved flexibility on how you source your IT and how you, say, the cost rolls out, and how you scale up and down your environments. The IT reseller or managed service provider, in this case, can fund the hiring of the required technical specialists, because they can be spent across multiple customers' infrastructure that tied to your own organization, but they're leveraged at a higher degree. And finally, because they have the people and you can say they are specialists in delivering these managed services, the likelihood that they are capable of keeping and delivering a secure environment to you as a customer is higher than if you try to do it yourself. If we then turn the torch and put a spotlight for a minute on the managed service provider, I mean, what is it? Why is it that resellers are interested in building and deliver managed services to customers? Well, there's again multiple reasons here, and I've just chosen to pinpoint three that I had in conversations with a couple of our larger managed service providers. It's about customer relation, it's about predictability and competition. So on the customer relation, say the fact that you're delivering a managed service to a customer, it ties you closer to their business. They are more, say, you are on call. It's not like you're selling a printer and you're running away. You are delivering, say, the endpoint service, and you're on call for the employees to work in that organization. It also, say, drives typically an increased customer satisfaction, because the end users will have a better service as it's delivered, say, with higher skills and, say, in a more what you could say factory delivered version. It's really a managed service that the partner reseller is building and ensuring that it's staffed, it's engineered, and it's designed in the right way to be able to service one and many customers. So typically for the partner, they also see the customers stay longer. And on predictability, if we jump to bullet number 2, say it's also that when there is a new demand, the customer will ask his managed service provider first, is this something that you can add on our service? And why? Because then there's just one throat to choke. And the more you can put on one service provider or include there, the better it is for you as a customer, of course, to a certain extent, without putting all eggs in one basket, so to speak. And for the reseller here again, so the managed services help them build recurring revenue streams versus hunting every month or every week or every day for a new deal to be closed and invoiced. And that, of course, gives them predictability and a more sound business for themselves. It's easier to forecast and say what you can pay and what you can afford in terms of investments when you know that you have a steady stream of revenue coming in. And then lastly, it's also, say, when you don't have, say, these project spikes, but you have an ongoing managed service, it's easier to get the right utilization of the high-cost IT people that they have to hire to deliver those services. Then lastly, on the competition, say the difference or the managed services really is an opportunity for the partner to differentiate in front of the customer. They can, because they are closer to the customer, they can provide a better and more, say, hand-stitched glove for the customer. Not that everything should be bespoke, because you need some standardization, but the fact that you're closer and better understand the customer, it all ties back to that you are in a better competitive position, and tying back to the customer relation and customer satisfaction. So this is all, you can say, one circle for the reseller, and why they are interested in going this route. Then say, what is it that the partner will, with IGEL, deliver to the customer? It's basically four things, I would say, to cut it out neatly. It's simplicity, as the partner, the MSP, will take care of the endpoint management and security. It is security. I mean, by deploying an IGEL endpoint OS, you will by design be secure and have additional abilities with our preventative security model that we'll hear about a little bit later, Fredrik. Cost savings, obviously. I mean, IGEL technology has a very proven high ROI for endpoint solutions, and that's really something that most industries and most customers, most businesses are looking for today. Last but not least, and it's put at the bottom because it's really sustainability, the ability to use hardware for a longer time, reduce the power usage and CO2 emissions and so forth, is of course on the agenda of everybody. But if you are a small, mid-sized company, it's probably the last thing you worry about, because the simplicity, security, and you can say cost savings has to be sorted first, but then you'll take the sustainability with you, and that's really what the customer will get from this. What the benefits are for the MSPs is multiple. I mean, it's flexibility, it's automation, it's pay as you grow, the ability to deliver that to your customers, the cost optimization, ability to deliver really sustainable IT. You can do it on cloud or on-prem as it's deemed necessary by the customer, and that will be supported by the highest level of support from IGEL to deliver the right level of experience for the customers. And of course, you can say the preventative security and ESG agenda is also a part of what the partner is getting out of our program here. To round this up and give you maybe a little view from the real world, I wanted to take into this meeting a case from one of our UK-based managed service providers, Workspace IT. They have just launched an amazing, well thought through solution based on IGEL and our MSP program, where they deliver a fully managed service, carbon positive device as a service from the outset. And this is, of course, a strong statement to come with when we all know that there's complexity in doing that. It's highly cost effective. It includes the preventative security, has focus on delivering a really great user experience, and works from the agenda of sustainable IT. Whether it's, say, to deploy new energy efficient devices, or it's to repurpose existing devices and extend the lifetime of those. I've picked, say, a few snapshots from how they position this in their customer documents, and you'll see on the left side really, say, some of the design elements. But what I wanted to highlight is what they built in. In addition to the carbon offset, if you're buying new stuff, new IT or endpoints, they also work with a company called Sunscreen IT, who is specialized in, say, ethical disposal of assets. So they're basically recycling the decommissioned hardware and make it come to use again in Africa, where there's a lot of people who are benefiting from this hardware that, of course, still can work, but it's just not good for what we want to use it for in our more, say, high demanding operations. So this is a very tight process where everything from the start to where things are decommissioned is really integrated in this in this one service. I can only encourage you to, if you want to hear more, reach out to Workspace IT, or also, of course, welcome to contact me afterwards. It's first name, last name at igel.com. I think that was what I wanted to share. I mean, general on the MSP agenda, and I hope to see many of you as customers of a managed service provider, and you partners on board here, to have you join the MSP program to deliver viable IT services to your customers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mads. Quick question. I don't see a lot of questions in the Q&A part, but I got a question in a private chat. You covered it already as part of the presentation, but how could a channel partner get onboarded into that program? What are the steps to follow?
So
do you maybe sum them up?
Yeah, I mean, basically they need to apply for an MSP program membership. There's a separate addendum to the partner contract that needs to be signed. You go on igel.com, under partner, become a partner, you'll find the link there. It's pretty easy. We can also send it out afterwards, actually. And then after that, legal partner sign up, we will have a process of helping you through, how you will work as a managed service provider. So there's some training requirements. We'll build some purpose-specific training modules that are taking you through how to run IGEL as a managed service provider. How do you overcome, the one-to-many scenarios where you want to manage multiple customers from one UMS environment? How do you make sure that you do this in a safe and sound way? How do you work with licensing? How do you optimize these workflows that we have tried to make as easy as possible, so you don't have to do license splits and license renewals and license updates and what have you. You basically just get the license on a tap, and then you are good to go. But it's all in a very staged program. There's a few steps. The sign up. You need some training. We need to get you to an ICE, so IGEL certified engineer, to be able to deliver, have the right level of competence for customers to be safe in your care. Actually in Q4 of this year, so these training modules, or these training vouchers that to get IGEL Academy Premium will be free to the partner. So they'll get 2 free memberships. Again, we'll try to help accelerate things and get the partners up to the level that they can service customers correctly.
Very good, thank you. So you mentioned Workspace IT in your presentation, and we don't want to make too much publicity, but hey, we have Dan Goss on the call, and he is also an IGEL Community Insider. So he's hanging around the community day in, day out. So if you have questions how to deal with such kind of situations, I'm pretty sure he would be happy to answer your questions. Or if you have anything else, drop us a message to René or myself on the IGEL community. And if you're not part of the community, just join us on join.igelcommunity.com. Thank you, Mads. I don't see any additional questions for the moment, but if something shows up afterwards, I will just forward them to you. But in the meantime, I thank you very much for your time and for the content you shared. We waited for this program for such a long time at IGEL, so thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Fredrik, now it's your turn. I know that you prepared 78 slides, just text and ASCII, as we discussed in our private chat. So really looking forward to see this, especially the vacation pictures of you in ASCII mode. But I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you, Mads, for starting up the session. And I'm happy to be here and share some insights about IGEL and Microsoft. So let me get started with maybe sharing my screen. As we have 78 PowerPoints, we need to start rapidly. So I believe that you can see my screen. And
we do.
Just the quick intro to this session, which is about IGEL and Microsoft. And as you can see, you see 3 different icons added to the presentation or to the slide. You see the Azure Virtual Desktop, the Windows 365, and the remote desktop. icon, and I will talk more about those in a bit. But first, who am I? I'm Fredrik Bratstig. I usually like to be called Fred because of a lot of misunderstandings in spelling. So Fredrik in Swedish actually is a combination of two words, which is peace and rich. So Fred Eric, for instance, is just a combination of two whatever. So that's why it's easier to call me Fred. I'm a senior technology evangelist at IGEL, and the 1st of November, I will have been an employee of IGEL for exactly 10 years. I have been able to gather the Microsoft MVP title since actually 4 years. So I'm in my 4th year of Microsoft MVP. I'm luckily also a Citrix CTP since 2 years. And I have been an NVIDIA Grid community advisor for the last 6 years, I believe. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I have a QR code, the one on the left side, which will take you to my LinkedIn profile, where you can connect with me if you want to. The QR code on the right side is to my blog. I'm a blogger. I try to blog about stuff that might be important to people, things that I figure out how to do that is basically not in the out-of-the-box experience, and try to share my findings and how to get started. So actually a few of the things that I will be talking about later on is actually also part of the blog if you want to go back for reference and so on. I will give you 5 more seconds to pull up your camera and go to the sites. If not, my blog is virtualbrat.com. Otherwise, LinkedIn, it's Fredrik Bratstig. You will only find one. So let's continue. So first of all, let's start with the basics. So just for you to have an understanding about the IGEL Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and remote desktop integration in IGEL OS. So first off, IGEL RDP or Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 builds on the Microsoft RD Client SDK. So we basically get a SDK by Microsoft that we then build our client-side application on top of. We are actually in the process, and it's been going on for quite some time. So if you're used to IGEL and have been testing the different application flavors we have for remote desktop, you might have seen that we have Azure Virtual Desktop, we have Windows 365, and we have the remote desktop client. Those are actually based for OS 12, which is what I'm talking about. Those are actually based on the RD Client SDK, all of them. And there is a good reason for this. We'll actually get to that later on. We are actually also going to release new client. I don't think it's released yet. That is called the RD Web Access, which is known from IGEL OS 11, where you could connect to published applications from on-prem RDS farms. This is now going to be a new app also based on the RD Client SDK. So the next basic, as I said earlier, IGEL OS 11 with a web access, for instance, was using in the foundation was using free RDP for the IGEL RDP 2 client that we were using in OS 11. With OS 12, we are actually moving everything over to IGEL RDP 3, which is basically based on the SDK plus add-ons from IGEL. So what you will see going forward is all of the RDP clients that we have will be using the AVD Client SDK as a foundation for everything going forward. So features are driven by Microsoft and affected by third party. What do I mean by this? So basically, Microsoft owns the roadmap for the Linux SDK. What we can do as third-party vendor, we can of course influence how they prioritize to include functions within the SDK. But we cannot really add functionality on, well, we actually can, but there are some challenges in terms of features and so on to get them prioritized and get them in the SDK. I just want to point out that Microsoft is owning the roadmap, but we are in tight discussions. I'm actually directly integrated with the PM teams in Redmond. I'm going there on a bi-monthly basis, having meetings and discussing where we should go next and so on. So I think we have a quite good relationship with Microsoft in terms of giving them feedback on what the market needs and what we would like to see as the next feature. With that, the basics are done. So we are hopefully going to switch slide. Yes, we are. There is a new shiny thing within the IGEL AVD client and soon to be also for the Windows 365. And it's called MSAL. So it's the Microsoft Authentication Library, which is basically a functionality within the AVD Client SDK, in our case, which enables different authentication methods. And the first one out is smart card authentication. So we are successfully doing smart card authentication both in Azure Commercial and Azure Gov. So Azure Gov, for you that don't know, is a separate instance of Azure that is managed by Microsoft, but it's for US government and customers. So Microsoft MSAL enables us to do smart card authentication, and we are actually going to look at how the MSAL works later on. This will also be the foundation for other authentication methods going forward, where I would expect to be able to see FIDO authentication, FIDO2 authentication quite soon, when quite soon could be, I cannot say any dates, but I would say it might be half a year out. But we are definitely stressing Microsoft to include FIDO2 authentication and other things coming after that. So I think this means enough slides. So what I want to do now is basically just show you a few hints and tricks and ideas and benefits that you can have of the dynamic client that we actually build for Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and remote desktop services. We are first going to look at custom app IDs, and I will try to explain the big benefit of doing so. We will then look at smart card authentication with MSAL. We're going to look for some help. So basically, what kind of help can I get out of the IGEL RDP3 binary? And how can that actually help me to customize my AVD sessions or Windows 365 or RDP sessions? And I will also talk about the ongoing UI improvements that we started up a while ago, but we are working hard on making the UI even more attractive for the Azure Virtual Desktop client. So if that sounds okay by everyone, I will actually shut down the presentation because I like PowerPoint, but I don't like too much PowerPoint.
Are you expecting someone to say no?
I don't know. It depends. Anyways, so what you see now is my primary main workspace where I do my daily basis work when I'm in the home office, which is actually quite often nowadays. So, which is beneficial to me and my family. But I'm stressing to tell that I've been using IGEL as the foundation for everything that I do for the last 6-7 years, I believe, at least. I think I'm one of the pioneers within IGEL to actually use IGEL on a daily basis. I know that there is more and more that are actually going the same route, which is very positive in my sense. So you see that I have a few different apps on my desktop, where I will just start by launching the AVD session. And this is important because it will show you the foundation of the Azure Virtual Desktop Client, how it's stock default setup. So I'll just launch the AVD app, and I will then also log in to Entra. And this is what we get. We saw that I was logging in. It showed the Entra web pages for a brief moment while the authentication was taking place. And I have received my resources, and everything is fine. So with that as a foundation, I will now start with a custom app ID. So keep in mind what I just showed you for later reference. So the custom app ID is a function within Entra. So in Entra, you can actually, as a customer, create your own app IDs, which can be like, why would I do this? So I figured out a small, neat thing actually about the Microsoft app IDs in combination with the IGEL AVD client. And going forward, also the Windows 365 client, we are going to add the app ID, custom app ID functionality to the Windows 365 client too. So first of all, let me show you my Entra ID environment. So I'm in the Azure portal for my tenant, Virtual Bratnet, as you see. I will actually go to the selection of app registrations and go to all applications, and I have created a custom app ID here. This custom app ID has an application client ID. We see that it starts with 4F7. Okay? So if I now open up the IGEL setup and I go to the system registry, and I will then go to app, I will go to AVD sessions, and I will look at, I think it's the one that is called AVD 0, yes. I will expand options, and I will go to a section that is called Workspace 0 Client App ID. Here we see a different app ID. The app ID is A85CF173 and a lot of other characters. So this app ID is actually the Microsoft first-party app ID that is assigned to any AVD and Windows 365 client today. Okay? So this app ID is actually possible to find within the Azure console. If we search for Azure Virtual Desktop Client, which is a service principal, we see A85CF173, which is the first party app ID that I just spoke about. So let's take us back. I have created my own custom app ID. It will all come down to an understandable solution quite soon. But I will just show you what I did with this app ID before we take any further actions. So within this app ID, I have actually created, let's see, API permissions. So I have granted this app ID some permissions within my Entra tenant. And it's basically delegated to use Access Virtual Desktop, Windows Virtual Desktop, which is nowadays Azure Virtual Desktop. It's allowed to read the email, the profile, and sign in and read the user profile for this user. Okay. So that's the grants that I created for this app ID. An app ID needs to have grants, of course, to be able to access Entra. You cannot just create an app ID, it won't have any grants. So now let's go back to the overview and take this app ID. I have copied that app ID. I will now create a new AVD session. AVD session custom app ID. So sadly, I have now showed you my app ID. You will get an understanding of why this should be treated as a company secret going forward. Anyways, I have created my session. I will save it, and then I will go to System. I will go to App, Register, of course, and App, and then I will look at AVD sessions, and I should now have AVD2, which is the new one with the custom app ID. I will scroll down to Options, and then to Workspace 0, Client App ID. I will now remove the first-party client app ID that we got from Microsoft to use with our clients, okay? And I will paste the custom app ID that I have. Hit Save, minimize the setup, and minimize the browser. We see that I have an AVD session custom app ID. So you previously saw that I logged in using the first-party app ID with an AVD session, and I got all the way into my resources. Let's see if I can do the same thing with a custom app ID. Oh, I need to make one more change. I will do that quickly, and I will not tell you why. I will do that later on. There we go. I will need to do one more change, actually. So I will actually just limit the session to use my single monitor and my first monitor. And now let's try again then. Awesome, it works. So I'm doing the same login. It looks exactly the same, but what will happen now is actually that my AVD client will connect to Entra and represent itself with a different app ID than the first-party app ID that is provided by Microsoft, okay? So I'm doing the login. Hopefully this will work. It actually did work. So I will now be able to log into any of my sessions. Let's go with AVD session. Just for you to see that I'm not trying to fool you around. It actually works. So that's enough. Let's shut this one now down. Come on. Perfect. I think it just hung briefly, so. Sorry. It's 9, IGEL RDP 3. It happens eventually, so. Perfect. So what have I done? I have created an app ID in Entra. I have assigned that app ID to my AVD custom app ID session, but I am still able to use the first-party app ID. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go for the Azure Virtual Desktop Client, which is the default app ID in Entra for Azure Virtual Desktop Clients. I will now go to Properties, and I will say it's not enabled for users to sign in. Okay. And I will save. So now let's start the first AVD session that I had. This is using the first-party app ID. I will log in. I cannot log in anymore. You got it? So I have actually disabled any Azure Virtual Desktop Client using the first-party app ID to log into Entra. So let's see now. I cannot log in using the first party. Can I log in with a custom? Hopefully I typed the password right. I can log in. So I was telling you earlier that you shouldn't share the app ID that you have created. And the reason for this is you now have a unique app ID that only your managed IGEL devices can use, which means that you are locking out anything else to connect to your Azure Virtual Desktop service for your tenant. I think that is a quite powerful thing. Let that sink in, and I will continue doing some more things. I will actually need to enable the sign-in again to do the next demo. And the next demo will be to show smart card authentication to Azure Virtual Desktop. So I have a smart card reader, and I have inserted one of my cards. Geez, I installed the middleware, so let's see if it works. I just installed the middleware. So anyways, when I'm now switching to use ANSEL for authentication, I have the possibility to log in using a smart card, which I will do. So I will actually use, if I look at I don't know if you see in the camera, but the user on this smart card is actually named user@virtualbrat.com. So I will use the user@virtualbrat.com. Note that this is an early version for smart card authentication. We are working on pre-populating the username field by inserting the smart card first, read out the UPN from the smart card, populate the username field in the AVD client, and then launch the AVD client. I have actually a script that can do this, but for the sake of it, I'm just telling you that for the time being, without the script, you need to enter the username to get further. So it's now connecting to Entra, and it knows that this user is actually protected by a smart card and directly asks me for a PIN because it can find the smart card that is inserted in my smart card reader. I will use my very top secret PIN code of 0000 and hit OK. So we are now authenticating to Entra. And what happens is that I see my desktop. Now let's see if this device is powered on. I hope so. I will describe the authentication flow that will happen now because we saw one pop-up of the smart card authentication. As soon as I launch the session, it will actually be a pop-up, but I'm using no hands. It was using ping cache, basically, to actually do, well, it's not using ping cache, it's actually using a ticket. So Okay. Bad demo, but anyways. What you saw was actually the AM cell popping up 3 times. The first time is to retrieve the resources. The second time is to log into the Azure gateways. And the third time is to log in to the RDP host. Now something fails here, so let's leave it there and just trust me that it actually works. I have been doing this quite a few times, and I have white-gloved some customers to actually get this going, so I can assure you that it works. Perfect. Let's go back to the... no, we don't need to go back to that. Let's switch to the third part of the demo that I'm doing today, and that is the help. So if we open up a terminal on the IGEL device, log in as root or user and type IGEL RDP 3 minus AVD in my instance, and then minus help. I will get a long list, and depending on the size of your monitor, it might be very difficult to read what I'm seeing on my screen. But anyways, IGEL RDP 3 minus AVD in my case, space minus help will give you the list of all the parameters that you can send to the AVD client. And this is actually quite an interesting thing to customize how the AVD client behaves for your user or for you as a person or so on during your own preferences, trying to customize the user experience as much as possible. Let's say that I would like to automatically launch a session, but I would also like to pre-launch the session, but give the user the option. You saw that when I logged in with Fred at virtualbrat.com, I had a lot of available resources. So let's say that I will log in and I will receive my resources, but at the same time, I will also connect to one of my sessions that is predefined without actually launching the session. So what I see within the help file is that I have a possibility to use -s to start a session. I can also do auto start in background. Let's see what that does. So let's continue using the session with the custom app ID, which is this one. And I will now go to, in the registry, go to the app, AVD, sessions, and your session, and options, and then find cmd_ext. So what I will do is I will type -s AVD Sweden central, and I will do -- auto start in background. Okay. So hopefully this will now launch the AVD Sweden Central session in the background. So let's see how that could look. I will start the AVD session again. I will do the login. Oh, by the way, I think I mistyped something. I don't like to see the web pages flashing by because it distracts me as a user. So let's see what I mistyped with the AVD Sweden Central and see what we can do.
Quick question, Fred, because the question came up in the Q&A, and could you just go back to the page that you just showed a second before? Because Jean-François is asking, I'm curious, why do not see any cloud PC on the AVD client on your side? I just see it on the screen that it shows, but it's not showing any connections. Is it on purpose or?
In the AVD client, you means?
Yes.
Well, I could do so. So while we're working, just to respond to the question.
Yeah.
Logging in again, loading the workspaces. Cloud PC Enterprise. And I'm connected.
Good. Okay, perfect.
Was that the question? Because
not sure, but let's see what Jean-François is asking after this. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, I will actually do the minus start instead, or minus S. AVD Sweden Central should be fine. Auto start in background. Let's make sure that we have auto start in background. Minus start and the session. So let's see if it works this time. By the way, I also want to remove the flashing web pages during the login process. So I can actually go to now. Let's see where we hide that one. There we go. We can hide the Microsoft Enter ID login, and we can actually set a time for how long we will hide the login pages. The reason for this is when I do the login, if I mistype the password, for instance, it will just hang there if I don't show the web page. So basically, or if there is an MFA required, of course. So basically what this will do is it will hide the web pages for 5 seconds. But if the login process is done earlier, it will just proceed. It will exit the wait for 5 seconds. Or if something hangs during the login process, it will actually show me whatever thing is expected for me to engage with in terms of MFA, wrong password, or whatever it might be. So let's try again now when I've done this. I hope the session will auto start. It should. Pay attention now because you won't see any web pages if everything is as it should. Everything is as it should. And now actually the start of the AVD Sweden Central is going on. So what we are now doing is we pre-launch a session. If you look at old Citrix terms, at the login of the AVD client, I still have the possibility to choose any other resource, but I can just go to my AVD session by clicking on it. In a way, a possibility to actually make the user experience better because you are directly connected to the desktop when you click on the icon. One more thing is we see what's happening here. We can actually start. Let's go for YouTube, Costa Rica, which is my favorite. I will play that YouTube video. I will turn on. Perfect. So let's go back to the. We actually do see the YouTube video playing because it's just a thumbnail of the session. So quite cool, anyways. Awesome. One more thing that we are paying a lot of attention to currently in terms of IGEL OS is that we are adding functionality for the user in terms of visibility. So what you can see down in the right corner is a network icon. And when I hover over it, actually says wired. If I was to have a Wi-Fi adapter that was connected, I would also see a Wi-Fi icon here, and it will also show the connection strength. If I was using a laptop with a battery, I would actually see a battery down here with the percentage if I hover over, and it will also be a tooltip when you hover over saying if it's connected or, the percentage, as I said. I can also go up to the menu. We see the same network icon here, and we will have a Wi-Fi icon here if I was on a Wi-Fi connection. Quite neat to actually give an indication for the user. If the connection strength is really poor, they will actually see that it's only one dot. We're going to extend this with further functionality. One thing that I see is, for instance, to configure Bluetooth devices while you are in session, because that will allow us to remove everything of the desktop and just use Azure Virtual Desktop as a clean kiosk mode thing, where the user actually cannot do anything to the device except for launching an AVD session. We looked at the hide web pages. We looked at the auto start. We have looked at the session toolbar. You just need to trust me about the icons for the Wi-Fi, but that's actually totally fine. So with that, I have actually went through what I was planning to show you guys, and we have 3 minutes for Q&A. So I will stop sharing my screen, I believe.
Lovely. Thank you, Fred. Thank you so much. We have 3 questions. So first of all, because the last question that I asked came in from Jean-François. So he is asking, so if I understand correctly, we should be able to see Windows 365 Cloud PC on the AVD client. However, it is not showing up for us. So we are limited to using only the Windows 365 client to connect to Cloud PC.
Yeah. I have no clue why it doesn't show, because it should always show. We are actually, what we do with the Azure Virtual Desktop Client is that we ask for the RD web feeds that comes from the feeds in Entra or in Azure, and we basically just download all the functionality or all the published available resources for the user, no matter if it's Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365.
Okay, makes sense. So just in case, Jean-François, if it's not showing up either, just drop us a note and we will check internally. And if it's not something which is fixable soonish, I would recommend to open a ticket. But let's wait. There was another question started at the beginning. How do I get USB device redirected to AVD without Fabula Tech? Short answer.
Good question. Stay tuned.
Very good. So that was the second question. Then there was a question from Jeff Long. Notably, FreeRDP did not have a facility to initiate a logout of an active session. For example, with the Citrix session, we are afforded the option to initiate a session logout via command line, effectively instigating a graceful logout of the remote Windows session via a local IGEL OS client command. Will we have this ability with IGEL ADP 3?
Well, not really, because there is no way to actually do this gracefully. So what we, for instance, when you're using a smart card for insert and removal actions, so basically we have a functionality in IGEL OS where you can actually trigger a functionality when you insert a smart card in a reader, and you can trigger another action when you remove the smart card. So, which is basically session roaming using smart cards. You just walk up to a device, you insert the card, something happens when you insert the card. Something happens when you remove the card, and that is usually to disconnect the user. So the only way that we have for the time being is actually to just shut down the AVD client. Depending on how hard you will actually shut it down, if you just want to exit the AVD client, that is a possibility. If you want to make sure that your session doesn't hang, that everything works perfectly fine and gracefully shuts down without actually shutting down the client side gracefully, is to hard kill the process while removing the smart card. So kill all, space -9, space IGEL RDP3 minus AVD. The negative thing of this is that there will be a stamp in the telemetry data for Microsoft that the client disappeared. So, but we are actually discussing this with Microsoft in how to gracefully, from client side, tell the server side that we are disconnected. So yes, on Citrix we have this possibility. For RDP, for the time being, we don't, but it's under investigation.
Thank you so much. So just time for a last question because we are a little bit over time already. So we will pick up the last question from Milan as he joined just because of me. Thank you, Milan. When will Microsoft officially support Linux support FIDO2 Enter ID IDP authentication using one of the available IGEL web browsers? I know that it's not an IGEL problem, but it does prevent us from moving to FIDO2 in a supported manner.
So if I get the question right, is when Microsoft will support FIDO2 authentication using the web client. Is that correct?
Milan, just confirm maybe on the chat if yes or no.
If that is not the case, if we are talking about FIDO authentication to Azure Virtual Desktop, I did cover this previously. We are starting with smart card because of priorities. MCell will be the key to enable smart card, and MCell will also be the key to enable FIDO2 authentication. And RDS AAD auth will then also bring the FIDO2 ticket to the session. And
Fred, if I may interrupt you, the question is more because for the moment Microsoft is only listing Edge as a supported web browser, and the question is, will there be something like Firefox or Chromium in the near future? Do you know something about this?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
That is purely a Microsoft play, of course.
Okay.
Though you will quite soon see Microsoft Edge for IGEL. If that
Watch out, new product releases for this. Okay, so as we're already a little bit over time, again, Fredrik, thank you so much for sharing all this insight with us, and thank you so much for having so much PowerPoint in your session. It was really refreshing. Thank you so much for this, and guys, see you soon. I wish you a pleasant rest of your week, and see you soon. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.